Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Ayurveda with Noreen podcast. If you are enjoying this podcast, I ask that you follow me so that we can continue to cultivate awareness around the wisdom of Ayurveda, as well as spotlight the awesome individuals who are committed to bringing it out there worldwide. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing a fabulous guest, Laurina Carroll, who has been practicing the Transcendental Meditation technique since 1986. And she's been teaching it since 1997 and currently in the Chicago area. Previously, Laurina lived in Germany teaching TM and working at the Maharishi Ayurvedic Wellness as a consultant, Maharishi Ayurvedic Wellness Consultant, and one of the most reputable Maharishi Ayurvedic clinics in Europe. During this time, her passion for Maharishi Ayurveda grew so strong that she moved back to the US for further training. Laurina earned a BA in Maharishi Ayurvedic Medicine and a master's in Maharishi Vedic Science from Maharishi University in Fairfield, Iowa. She also worked at the Raj Health Spa, also in Fairfield, as a lecturer and as a health coach. Laurina continues to work offering wellness seminars and webinars. She also provides nutrition and lifestyle consultations for her clients, which include individual recommendations for an Ayurvedic diet, herbal products, yoga exercises, and daily and seasonal routines that are designed to support her clients' good health. She's recently become an author for this amazingly accessible book, which is called Perfect Health for Busy People, a Maharishi Ayurveda Guide to Enjoying a Longer, Happier Life. Welcome. Absolutely, that's great. Right. Thanks, Laurina.
There you go.
Welcome. Awesome. Welcome today. That's a fabulous title for a book because everyone's so busy that they sort of forget about self-care and health. And, you know, Americans don't necessarily want to take a lot of time. So the busy part is really attractive because it's sort of like, well, how can I build these things into my day? So how do you first address Americans in their busy lives? It's a different culture in terms of staying healthy the Ayurvedic way.
So yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very passionate about trying to incorporate healthy lifestyle habits. I know it's not easy, but what I say to people, and I think you might know this as well, I have a lot of clients that actually had to stop working due to burnout. So, one of the mottos in my book is, pay now or pay later. And I don't mean to be mean when I say that, but I think we all know that when we kind of just go about our life and really don't take care of ourselves, some signs and symptoms will emerge and will force us to do that. So I encourage everyone to try to, and you don't have to be perfect at it. And, of course, you can cheat and cut corners here and there, but it's just the majority of the time, if people can get to bed on time, I talk about the rhythms, being in tune with the rhythms of nature, get some good sleep, good quality sleep is the first place to start. And then just starting to eat healthy. Organic, non-GMO foods. I have a whole chapter on that in the book. And to try to prepare as much on the weekend. So if Monday through Friday, I'm very busy. I have a 40-hour work week. Then prepare some things over the weekend. We like to have everything very fresh in Ayurveda, which doesn't make it easy. But I have in the book also some recipes that these are not gourmet. You're not going to be at 7 o'clock in the morning preparing lunch or breakfast. That's gourmet. This is quick, healthy foods. And so that's kind of really where I help people, is to just do the preparation, clear out all of the processed foods in the house, and just slowly start implementing freshly cooked foods. Even if you're not a cook, consider it just a lifestyle to start to cook for yourself, that for your health, really.
Sure. No, it's really an investment. We're gonna delve into your book, and specifically your focus on the 8 pillars of health from an Ayurvedic perspective. But before we do that, I read your bio, and I read it for our viewers and our listeners as well. But tell me just in your own words how you became interested in Ayurveda, how Ayurveda started to call you, how Ayurveda found you.
Sure. So I had learned Transcendental Meditation,
Mhm.
and then many of the people that I had met, meditators, people that were practicing Transcendental Meditation perhaps longer than I was, they had a friend of mine had a keen interest in Ayurveda, and he never became a practitioner or anything, but he came to my house. He was a TM teacher. That's long before I became a teacher. And he was like a little yogini. I mean, he'd be on the floor doing the yoga, and then he'd go in the kitchen and he'd start cooking. And so he really inspired me, and he just, gave me a lot of tips for good health. And then I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and there was Dr. Vasant Lad, who's a very well-known Ayurveda expert. And then some of the Maharishi Ayurveda experts would also, travel. And I saw Dr. Triguna at one of the World Peace Assemblies where I did longer meditations. So he took my pulse and gave me dietary and lifestyle recommendations. So we know that, Maharishi brought out Transcendental Meditation, which obviously is the most important thing one can do for one's health. But that the next step was, okay, diet, lifestyle, like that. So it was kind of just sort of very easy and not a lot of pressure in the beginning. I was just learning from friends, learning from, when you go to an Ayurveda expert, then you get all these recommendations. There's a lot to read through.
Sure.
So it's just sort of like bit by bit, okay, I take these herbs. I have a little bit of a pitta imbalance, and I take these herbs, and then I eat these things, and it'll help me feel better and help me with some of the issues that were happening. And then from there, it just grew. And I raised my daughter using just herbal and, dietary recommendations. And we never needed to use medications. And occasionally, things come up that you might use something, but my cabinet looks like there's no medicine cabinet. It's all an herbal cabinet, and, it just, I don't take aspirin.
Well, I love how you describe your medicine cabinet, because I recently did an interview with Dr. Suhas and his book on Panchakarma. And in that book, it talked about, kind of the medicine cabinet stage of disease. In Ayurveda, we have the stages of disease. So that particular stage of disease is when, you have the individual client, the person with the medical issues has a whole bunch of over-the-counter medications, and then gradually prescription medication, and the medicine cabinet is full. So I love that you didn't have a medicine cabinet, or yours was a natural herbs cabinet. Awesome. So it sounds like in some ways that Ayurveda, your initial introduction was rather easy, and it wasn't like jumping into an academic program. It was being surrounded by people who were starting to make those kind of changes and becoming curious.
Yes, and reading books on it. So then, like I said, I would go to an Ayurveda expert, and then like I said, you leave there with what your dosha is, what your dosha type is, and what your recommendations are. And so then I would just read that. And then, of course, there were some great books I would read, and I got some Ayurvedic cookbooks. So it's just sort of like self-taught and experimenting with different things. But when you go to an Ayurveda expert, they really do give you a lot of information. I do the same with my clients, and they can, even if they don't know very much, but just give them sheets, to worksheets in a way where they can, okay, I do this in the morning, and this is the best breakfast for me. And then I take these herbs, and they laid it out for me. So I just followed, and I always say you really need compliance from, whoever, from my clients. I need compliance. And I was pretty compliant. I'm a pretty disciplined person, but, I just followed what they said, and then it worked. And it's just interesting how then a few decades later, I'm thinking, well, wow, I never needed to use medications. I would just go to an herbal preparation when an issue came up. Now, that's not going to be the case for everyone. Some people for different reasons may have to take medications, and that's okay. We're just trying to minimize it.
Sure.
as much as we can. There's life or death situations you have to take medications, and we're happy that they're there. But this overuse in America, particularly, is not good, and I think it's what's causing a lot of disease, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. I'm curious about, in your own journey with Ayurveda, before we delve into the book more deeply, how did you decide to go from adopting Ayurvedic habits, surrounding yourself with, like-minded people who are practicing Ayurveda in their daily lives, and how did you decide to actually study Ayurveda formally? What was the driving force for you in that regard?
Well, I think, and again, a lot of it, how your life just unfolds, and
Sure.
you're looking for something. And I think that's when things happen. And by working at the Ayurveda clinic with those top Maharishi Ayurveda experts, I just got to see firsthand how powerful it is to have this type of knowledge. And we had people coming for Vedic intensive programs. So it was Panchakarma, but like more intense, for very serious chronic issues that doctors couldn't help those people with. And they were coming to us from all over Europe, and even from America, because this was in Germany. And I just saw the transformation. And then, like I said, I got to be a wellness coach even before I was really qualified, quite honestly, because I spoke German and English. So they would just be like, here, go read these recommended, the Ayurveda expert would write it out, and then go here and, read it out to them. So I was kind of learning as I was going along and what to do, and just reading from the sheet. I mean, I knew a lot about Ayurveda. I read so many books. I had decades of just doing, I did Abhyanga, I did Panchakarma. So, but they just sort of threw me in it with these recommendations. And then I just, felt like my daughter was going to the Maharishi International University in Iowa. Well, actually, she was going to the K through 12 first. She was in 9th grade. And again, that was sort of like, the admissions counselor, whoever was there, my daughter was going into the 9th grade, and they're like, well, why don't you study something? And I think I had inquired about the Ayurveda, but I'm like, well, let me just go in and settle down, get to America first, because then I moved from Germany to America.
Sure.
Before I know it, a week later, school was starting, and there I am in my neuroscience with Dr. Travis.
I love that. That's usually the way it happens. It's like one week you had no idea, and the next week there you are, you're signed up.
Oh my gosh,
that's awesome.
I was there. I was jet lagged. I was half asleep, but my daughter was in school, and it was a perfect opportunity. And I wouldn't trade that experience for the world, because I learned so much. And
of course, I love your experience as well. I mean, it was kind of like, you were surrounding yourselves with teachers way before going into an academic program, and really that was the old way of learning, and in some ways it's the most profound way of learning. So thank you for sharing that. Ayurveda was already part of you before you signed up for an academic program. So,
absolutely.
And the book, how did the book come about? Was that just another one of these, it just came up, or was it something that you had been wanting to put out there for a while? Tell me a little bit about the book.
So when I was working at the Raj has like a little guidebook, right? And I thought the book is okay, but I thought I want to do something deeper. And so I had that idea for a very, very long time. I wrote a few chapters, and then I just got so madly busy with teaching meditation and Transcendental Meditation, everything. And then when the pandemic hit, we were not allowed to teach for 3 months. I couldn't teach the meditation, even though there were ways you could have taught. They just opted, okay, no teaching for 3 months. Okay. So I just dove in and finished the book.
All right. So the pandemic it was an opportunity for you.
Finally, because it was hard for me. Like people say, I always ask people that wrote books, how did you do it? Oh, 15 minutes a day or a half hour a day. I just couldn't do it that way. Yeah. So what I did was I just literally 6 to 8 hours a day was the way that I could really, or maybe 6 hours, that I could really just go into it and do it, rather than in bits and pieces. And I had that 3 months. And then once it was almost finished, like in the 3 months, I got a lot done. Then I was able to teach meditation and then weave it in and just maybe have, okay, one or 2 days a week, 6 hours a day, because I was busy the other days. And then I would go in and I finished it. But it's not, it was much more difficult than I anticipated. And even though when you read it, it just seems very simple and okay, you just have this, and it's not overdone or too much. But it's still a lot because you want to have it just right and the editing. And so it was a lot. But that's kind of how it got done finally.
That's great. And when was the book officially birthed?
It was last year, so that would have been 2021, October of 2021.
Okay. And is it available in both electronic and paper?
Yes, I actually it's Kindle and book form, through Amazon, and
Sure.
Actually every bookstore has it. You may have to order it, but Barnes and Nobles, and they're all carrying it. But also, I just finished the Audible yesterday.
Oh,
So,
wonderful.
If anybody likes the Audible, you just go on Audible, but it probably maybe another month or two. So I would imagine well before Christmas. And what's great about the Audible, which I didn't know, is that they also give you the option to give a PDF of the recipes and of some of the things that are pertinent to the book that you would want in writing form. So,
right. Some of the things that you maybe want to retain more permanently. Okay.
Exactly. So I realized
that's great.
Do that. So it's going to most likely be on Audible, and they can, if people like, I know I read a lot of books on Audible. It's a great way when you're traveling, and so
sure, awesome.
People might enjoy that as well.
That's great. Well, what I like about the book is it is very accessible, but it's not. It gives you enough information. So like you were saying, there was something available at the Raj that, kind of a how-to with Ayurveda, and, but there's enough meat in this book that, you can really make some significant changes, but it's not overwhelming. So thank you for putting this out there as much needed in the Ayurvedic book world. But I want to dive right into, you talk about, first of all, perfect health. We go back to Deepak Chopra's book, Perfect Health. And with Ayurveda, really the goal is perfect health. And perfect health is our birthright. It's just, kind of the buildup of toxins that depletes our perfect health. So I want you talk specifically about the 8 pillars of perfect health. Could you tell us a little bit about that? What are those 8 pillars? And we're going to get into why each one is important, but maybe just list them for now. And I can certainly jog your memory, but I'm sure you know them by heart.
Sure. So the first one was Transcendental Meditation. That's
sure.
That, and people always ask, well, why is that the first thing? And it's because if you look at scientific research, if you were to say, oh, I don't have time, I'm only going to do one thing for my health, that's really the thing that I would choose. If I'm hoping you're not going to do just one, but that would be interesting, because Transcendental Meditation is the most impactful. We know there's hundreds of research studies showing the efficacy of, lowering stress, lowering anxiety, helping with depression, sleep, and the whole thing. If you meditate regularly twice a day, 5 years or more, you reduce your chance of heart disease, stroke, and cancer by 55%. So with that statistic, that would be the most impactful. So that's where I want to begin. And most people are willing to do it. It's 20 minutes in the morning, before breakfast or coffee. And then, the second one you can do sometime in the afternoon or early evening. And that cortisol reduction, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask, Ayurveda talks a lot about the mind-body connection. And would you indicate that you consider the practice of transcendental meditation to be key to not only our mental health, but our physical health as well. And that you really view it as the number one priority with maintaining physical health. Now, most Americans are going to buy into the mind-body connection, but they're not necessarily going to buy into if I meditate, my physical health will improve. They know their stress levels will decrease with meditation and other relaxation techniques. So how do you address that when they say, you know, I don't really believe that my physical health is going to improve as a result of, you know, I mean, yes, we can give them the scientific studies and all of that, but you're having a conversation with a client. You know, how do you really address that?
Yeah, I mean, I think people recognize that they store stress in the physiology. I think more people are open to that idea now, and
Okay.
and the mind-body connection. But what I go into and I tell them that, you know, 1 20-minute sitting of transcendental meditation is going to reduce your cortisol, your stress hormone. And that, if you sleep 8 hours, your cortisol drops by like 5 to 10%. And I tell them how doctors find that very appealing. That's why a lot of doctors recommend TM, and that you can't get that reduction of cortisol anywhere with anything else so dramatically. So in terms of that mind-body connection, you know, you meditate, you know, the mind settles down, the body settles down. There's a correlation between the brain waves, because now when your cortisol drops, your alpha coherence increases. And I won't, you know, give a whole neuroscience class, but this is very important because alpha coherence means that you have this very calm, you know, restful mind and body, and that the brain waves are getting more coherent. So we know that good health does start with the mind. And if you are in the fight or flight, if you have a lot of stress at work and you're rushing here, rushing there, and you're in that fight or flight, you know, your prefrontal cortex, which is like the CEO of the brain, that's going to shut down. You know, they say the amygdala, you know, in that fight or flight is just, you know, going to be under chronic excitation, and it's not good. So TM deactivates the amygdala, gets you out of that fight or flight. And then the brain waves start to fire, you know, all the different areas of the brain light up and they're working in unison. And that's going to heal the body. And I know it may be hard to believe, that's why it's good the science is there, but that is, but I think what I find with my clients, I get a lot of referrals because people are skeptical or they've tried another form of meditation. But I get a lot of referrals because they recognize, you know, the ones that are committed to doing it, how palpable it is, the difference in how you feel, the brain's working better, you're more focused, you can you're calmer, your emotions are in balance. And people recognize that that's going to affect the body. So I think that's sort of that's my pitch to them.
Sure.
So, you know, usually it works, but I get most people are skeptical until, you know, a day or two in, they're like, whoa, this works, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, experience is the best antidote for skepticism. So trying something and having an open mind.
Right.
I know that you described in the book a little bit about your own experience initially with transcendental meditation, that you immediately felt some of your unhealthy cravings, because that's some of the thing that, you know, we have stress and then we have unhealthy cravings to help balance the stress or to de-stress, whether it be, you know, alcohol or binge eating or carbs, you know, whatever it might be. And you said that without effort, some of your unhealthy cravings started to really fall away, that you no longer had a desire for, you know, let's say sugar cravings or carbs or whatever it might be. Could you say a little bit about the regular practice of transcendental meditation and cravings?
Yeah, so, you know, that was a very interesting, I was kind of, you know, I was young, I was 22 years old and living in Manhattan, and I was pretty stressed. I was happy. I was doing the things that I love and enjoying the city and all the things I was pursuing. So there was happiness there.
Sure.
But that stress would really take away my happiness sometimes. And when I'm stressed, it's like, okay, I need some sugar, I need some carbs, and, you know, just sort of instant fuel. And that's especially when you have that just everywhere. There's always, lovely shops where you can get, sweet treats and things. And of course, as I mentioned, at work, you can get them all everywhere. People are always bringing in some, nice sweet treats. So it's sort of a negative thing, I feel, in our society that, they're just there, and then, you could have fruit there instead or something, right? Healthier. But then when I started meditating, I was able to resist that more. And I did gravitate towards healthier things. And the sugar felt more aggressive to me. When you start to settle down and just get rid of that stress, you don't need that sugar to quell the stress anymore. It's just, you're feeling very balanced. And so, yeah, I got, really just more. And then of course, with some of the Ayurveda tips that came later, I didn't know much about Ayurveda initially, but people were getting into health, and I was cognizant that, okay, I have to, if you eat, maybe have more fruit, or have, just some things that, salads and cooked vegetables and things. And so I kind of got into that, but it was easier to do when I wasn't stressed out.
Of course. And I know that I'm not sure if you can speak to this or not, but I know that there's been some changes in just the teaching of Transcendental Meditation, that there's now an app. And so as a result of the pandemic, it's even easier for people to learn. Is that something that you can talk about, or if not, it's fine too?
No, I can. And sure. What's wonderful about this technique is that they do still want the first day to be that private one-on-one in person, and that will never change. So you do have that private teacher, but we are people from all over, the world. You can learn this anywhere in the world, and that makes it hard for some people if they're in remote areas or with traffic, even having to drive an hour to the center. So the first day you actually learn in person, private one-on-one, but if you want, you can do 3 follow-ups via Zoom. And those Zoom sessions are about 45 minutes long. And then you can do 3 one-hour lessons via an app. And you have like 15 days to complete it. And, the negative to that is maybe some people won't get to it because they are so busy, whereas if they were committed. But I find that people do really well with it. I've taught a lot of people since the app came out. The app's been out almost a whole year, I think now. And people are really enjoying it, and it makes it much more accessible. Some people still want that first lesson on Zoom, and that's just not going to happen. But I think that, and it was actually, Dr. Nader who brought this out. He even said that it's not just because of the pandemic. They had this in motion way before the pandemic happened. This was really just to make it more accessible to people that talk about busy, that have little time. And so it's been really, really effective. I find that people are learning just as well. And if they want to do all 4 days in person, they have that option as well.
Awesome. So the first day is in person, and there's 3 follow-ups on Zoom, about 45 minutes each. And those are typically all within a 10-day period, right? Or within 2 weeks?
The first 4 days are consecutive.
Right.
So they will be, it's the first day of training and then 3 follow-ups via Zoom. So that's all consecutive. And then you come back 10 to 14 days for another follow-up. And then after that, once a month, we recommend for the first year.
Okay. And you said there's 3 hours of like pre-recording. That's more like videos that sort of
Maharishi and Dr. Nader.
Right.
And like that. Yes.
Awesome. That's great. Well, the second pillar of health in your book is diet and digestion. Could you say a little bit about that? I mean, we know a lot about diet, specifically food and food choices, just from a Western nutrition perspective, but maybe just a little bit of insight on how Ayurveda views food and diet and digestion.
Great. Yeah, that's a good topic. So so the second pillar, the reason why it's diet and digestion is that in Ayurveda, we say that digestion is the root cause of all disease. And it's actually even mental, digestion of experiences. That's why we're doing the meditation. to help with that. And so what happens is that when we eat a poor diet, we might accumulate what's called ama, or toxins. And so what we're trying, and whether people even know about Ayurveda or recognize it or not, people recognize that, they feel sluggish, or their digestion is weak. So even if they don't know anything about Ayurveda, they recognize that something's not right when they're not eating a good diet. And so the whole goal in Ayurveda is to have better digestion. And we do this through trying to decrease the toxins, the ama, in our physiology. And so we do that with special diet. And then ojas, which is the supreme level of digestion, when people are just, really doing very well mentally, physically, emotionally, and they're just the epitome of health. They will have more of this ojas, which is the substance that can sort of, ooze off of you with, really good.
It's kind of that you can, when you're in the presence of somebody with good ojas, there's that vitality, there's that glow, there's that sattvic presence.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you want to say about ojas in terms of, so it's just really that real feeling that this person, that everything feels very balanced. Doesn't mean that they don't have their ups and downs, but generally very balanced.
Right. And some people have that, more naturally. And
Right.
so it's hard to define. Like somebody could maybe, abuse themselves a little bit more, and they still might just have an abundance of ojas. And that is more of the kapha quality, that kapha dosha in Ayurveda. But we can also help it to increase, especially because it does decrease as we age. And that's really the whole battle in Ayurveda, is to just, make sure that we're eliminating the ama, the toxins, and increasing, the ojas, that balance. And so there are very sattvic foods that can help in this way. Blanched almonds, dates, and milk, if people, can eat milk or, drink it. And then also, just almond milk is lovely for that. And then of course, just fresh fruits and vegetables. So there's so much that we can do. But the main thing is that sludge, those toxins that can build up. That's why the panchakarma therapies are so good. But people can sort of do mini panchakarma therapies on their own to improve their digestion. So you can do a nice abhyanga, or even a garsham with the gloves that helps to stimulate digestion. But of course, really a balanced diet, to know your dosha type, and to know, okay, I have to have 3 balanced meals a day, not eating too late at night, and just all the wonderful things that Ayurveda lays out in terms of eating the diet suited to our constitution is going to help our digestion. Some people have, like vata types, they're very irregular. They can get, cause gas or bloating from their irregular sort of times that they eat and the foods that they are drawn to. So vatas might find a lot of gas and bloating, and they have to, a lot of ginger, a lot of well-cooked vegetables and things like that. And the pittas, they can actually have a very fast digestion, but sometimes the negative for them is they can get ulcers if they're not eating properly. And so their digestion may be too quick and too fast, and they're burning everything so quickly because there's too much acidity. So we have to balance that with more cooling herbs and a nice diet. And then kaphas, if they're out of balance, they can have really slow digestion. They feel like everything that they eat is like lead in the stomach. They just don't digest things. So they would do well on, more liquid diet, having, 1 or 2 days a week, a liquid diet, so that the digestion can sort of, get back to what it should be. And of course, exercise even, which I, mentioned in the book, that's another pillar. I mean, that's crucial to improving digestion, and people just don't move enough.
Right. Well, that's actually, that's a really great point. Exercise is one of your pillars of health, but it does improve the digestion as well, because you get all metabolic processes going with the exercise. So very good point. I know that in the book you talk about the concept of Agni, which many of our viewers and listeners are familiar with in terms of the digestive fire. But maybe just a little bit about why having that, and you don't want the fire to be too hot, or you don't want to risk the fire going out. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of Agni and how to cultivate healthy Agni?
Sure. So yeah, Agni, it's that, really the life of Ayurveda, of powerful digestion. And so, the best thing, as I was mentioning before, is, getting to sleep on time. People wouldn't, and that's another pillar, sleep. People don't realize that if they stay up too late, eat too late at night. So believe it or not, to improve Agni, there's an expression in Ayurveda, the day begins the night before. Right. So if you want to have better digestion, believe it or not, you want to get to bed by 10 o'clock, because between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. is when all the metabolic processes are happening, and all of the fuel you ate during the day, all of the wonderful, hopefully wonderful Ayurvedic food you ate, is going to be transformed into fuel for the next day. Sure. So, people, they don't honor that. They stay up late. That there's a lot of my clients, I'm just surprised, they stay up late. They're trying to get some work done. Or maybe they eat late at night, which is really going to thwart your Agni, your digestion. So that's the first thing I tell people, get to bed by 10 o'clock, eat your evening meal by 6 or 7 p.m. And that's going to set the tone for the next day. And there's a wonderful Triphala or digest tone, from MAPI. That's just so key. It's pretty much, unless people have specific health issues, almost everybody can take that every night, an hour before bed, tones the digestive system. And if they don't eat too much late at night and they get to bed by 10, they're going to notice when they wake up a complete difference in, you can feel the stomach in the morning, how it's reacting to what happened the night before in terms of how much you ate and sleep. And then, when they get up, everyone talks about fasting, right? Well,
I was wondering about that, because in your book, you said, intermittent fasting is, it's big right now. I mean, in terms of in the wellness world, and, many people fasting from, dinner the night before until lunch the next day, or between 11 and 12 o'clock, maybe they're having their first meal. But in your book, you say specifically Ayurveda, 12 to 15 hours is enough, but some of the intermittent fasting is going as far as 16 or 17 hours. So how do you feel about that? Or how does Ayurveda view that?
I mean, if you're a kapha type and you have a lot of weight to lose, you're probably going to do okay. Right. But my experience is that the people, I've literally had people, come to learn to meditate, and, they've been fasting. But let me tell you what they kind of get wrong is that they might have their last meal at 10, 11 or midnight, and then they don't eat till the next day at 2 o'clock.
Yeah. They haven't quite gotten that,
No.
They're just looking at like the 16 or 17 hour interval, and not, you don't want to be sleeping on your meal.
Exactly. And they do.
Just don't want to do that.
One guy,
because you won't be sleeping well is number one. Yeah.
He was shaking. So he was a young, thin 20-year-old that got into something on the internet with the intermittent fasting. And he was like shaking, like, you could just see, and the other thing is that.
Well, he probably had his bulletproof coffee.
Exactly. You probably had something like that. So there's a lot of things we could correct there. So, so the thing is like I said, if you need to lose weight, or if your digestion is very weak, then we can talk about going a little bit longer. But if you've had dinner by like 6 or 7 p.m., which really it should be, 7:30, maybe, okay, if it's light dinner. But then and Ayurveda actually does recommend breakfast after 8:30. So, and a light breakfast, not like this huge, breakfast, because you need to, I always tell people in terms of Agni, you need to be famished by noon. Right.
Yeah. I'd like you to elaborate a little more I've heard that a lot from people I've interviewed about. In Ayurveda, there's the recognition that our digestive fire, or Agni, is not strong first thing in the morning. So it's a little bit weak. It needs to be kindled. And so having a light breakfast makes most sense, not to overpower it with, bacon and eggs and toast and, the kind of the heavy breakfast. Speak to that a little bit in terms of what would be appropriate. And you said, wait until about 8:30 for breakfast. So what sort of options I know it depends on the mind-body type of a particular person and the season as well, but what are some of the options for a light breakfast that, you want your Agni to be strong and ready to really be hungry at noon?
Right. So again, it's quantity based on your needs. So you could have just stewed fruit. So if you're trying to lose weight or your kapha, you could be a little more slender, but still have a weak digestion. People know themselves, and you just don't feel hungry. But you also need to feel a little grounded, especially if people need to work. So you could somebody who really can get by, just stewed fruit. You can have some oatmeal or some other, I like gluten-free. So, some gluten-free grain that you cook, you can just cook it up. I make a gluten-free bread that I talk about, yeast-free, also in the book. So you can have a little toast. You can have a little bit, if you're Vata Pitta type and you're not looking, and your digestion's pretty good, you could have a little bit of a nut butter, sunflower seed butter. We don't eat peanut butter in Ayurveda. Peanuts are like the enemy. They're like the worst nut. They're very toxic. So that's another thing I wish I could, announce that on the 5 o'clock news, that people should to sunflower seed or blanched almond butter.
You do a billboard, no PB&J or something?
Yeah. But you could do your sunflower seed. The sunflower seeds to me taste very close to peanut butter, and with a little jam, and you get sugar-free jam, it's fine. Or tahini, it's nice to get some sesame seeds, especially as we age. We need that for calcium, for the bones. So you could have some tahini. You could have avocado if you have a good, but just a little bit. Again, it's quantity, not like this breakfast. Just something to hold you over. So that I always tell my clients, and I mention it in the book, whatever happens in the morning, by noon, you should be like, man, I have to eat so, quickly, I'm ravenous, which, kaphas rarely get ravenous, but at least the Pitta Vatas might. And so the reason why is that the sun, even if the sun isn't out on any particular day, or if it's the winter, just because it's the Pitta time between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., that noon is the peak time to have your largest meal so that you can digest it well. And that's going to give you the highest level of digestive power. And so you want to have all 6 tastes, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, astringent. You want to have all those, 6 tastes in that meal. And so what would that be? And a sample meal for me is just, legumes, maybe 25% legumes, nuts and seeds, and then you're going to have 25% gluten-free grain, and then you'll have maybe 50% well-cooked vegetables, and spiced according to your dosha type. Maybe a little buttermilk if you're not a vegan at the end of your meal, or a little bit of lassi. And so you have this full meal that is going to be just so conducive to absorbing those nutrients. And then you're grounded, because the problem is that people will go all day on coffee or some caffeine, or just grabbing a little sugar here and there. And some people just literally skip meals. That's my experience with the people, that I see for consultations. And once I get them to on this routine, and they can plan for it, their emotions are feeling better, not just their Agni, their digestion.
Right.
But it's also that they're grounded, because like I said, that boy that was shaking, even if you're just grabbing a little bit of food here and there, you're just, when you eat, you just feel settled. The mind, it's something that's
Yeah, it's very calming. There's no doubt. You actually brought up some good points about that midday meal that I want to just
Sure.
comment on. And yeah, Ayurveda definitely recommends that your largest meal is midday. But you talked about the importance of that, and specifically because the sun is highest in the sky and strongest at that time of day. And so that we're aligning with nature's rhythms in terms of, and so therefore our Agni, our digestive fire, is also strongest that time of the day. And I think the other thing that's important with Agni is that it's when it is burning strongly, it's allowing us to assimilate the nutrients. So we're actually getting more from our foods, and our digestion is more efficient. Is there anything that you want to follow up with those points?
Yes, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's, and even experiences. So it's how we eat the food that, no matter how busy I am, I always sit and I put all of the items on the table. And when I'm going to eat, another Ayurveda principle is to not eat standing, not eat rushing around, and to wait 10 minutes after your meal to sit and digest. That's going to also help you assimilate the nutrients from the food. Eating in a settled environment, and you could have light conversation, doesn't mean you can't talk to anyone, but you're just getting, like, a lot of women, especially if they're have a family, they're running up and down, oh mom, I need this, I need that, and it just they're ruining their digestion. They're not going to assimilate the nutrients in that way. And I know, again, it's hard to, it's a lot of sort of beforehand, you have to sort of prepare, so it's a lot of preparation, but you've got salt and pepper and the spices, and we need this and we need that, and making sure everything's on the table so that you're just all settled. And it's great to have the kids love this, by the way, because they can, it's kind of like family time and everybody can talk, and you don't realize how much you're doing for the morale of the family to actually have everybody, at lunch or dinner. Now, of course, if they're in school, it won't happen, but at dinner or on the weekends, to bring everybody together in a settled environment and let everybody wait 10 minutes after the meal. And the other thing is not to eat too long and to graze. So there are people that, they hardly eat anything, but every hour they're grabbing something, and Ayurveda refrains from that because it's not good for your Agni to start and stop the digestion. So when you're sitting there, you're just really saying, okay, I'm going to eat my meal within 30 minutes and then be finished, and then not eat for 2 to 3 hours after the meal is over. Maybe I'll have a snack if I'm really hungry, but allowing that food to digest and not having something else blast it like an hour later. And that's what tends to happen when people don't eat enough or have good quality nutrition at that main meal.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Something that's largely forgotten in our culture is that, Ayurveda does say that it will create ama if you're eating before the prior meal has digested.
Exactly.
So you really want to eat sufficient quantities and food and drink sufficient liquids so that you're not hungry until the next meal. And so that's really important. I know that you talk about in the book also the energetic qualities of food. You talk about the concepts of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Could you comment on that a little bit in terms of, I know they're universal qualities and they relate to much more than food, but could you talk about those qualities and how they do relate to our foods?
Sure, no, absolutely. So the sattvic foods are the ones that promote more ojas. And as I mentioned before, that's all the wonderful foods that, Ayurveda promotes, whether it's legumes and vegetables and some nice nuts and seeds. So that's kind of, ojas promoting good, healthy fats. Well, what's interesting is the sattva and the tamas, even though they're more negative qualities, and those would be your vinegar, your alcohols, sugar in excess, even drugs and those very highly negative substances. Sometimes we need a little bit of that in moderation is okay. For example, maybe olives that are they cure them a little bit and they're very sattvic, but they're maybe cured in something to make them a little bit fermented, or a little bit of, there's a lot of lovely chutneys in Ayurveda that are a little bit pungent, which is more of the, tamasic quality. And what's interesting is you can have a little bit of that, and that can help the digestion to help spur more ojas. So it's interesting, even though they're considered a little bit negative, it's almost like having a negative experience and it's positive because you learned your lesson from it or something.
Well, I think also that you're talking about quantity is important as well. That,
exactly, it's a small amount. Like you can have, when they use these chutneys or raita, with yogurt and spices, you're using, even though it's a little bit more, tamasic, or what they call rajasic, you're having just a small amount, and that can help to spur on the ojas, the sattvic qualities, which is very interesting, because if you digest it better, so that's why a minority of the rajas and the tamasic qualities and majority of ojas is going to be that nice balance, just to help us to digest the food. So that's very important.
Sure. And you made the point earlier that we're becoming, I think people are becoming increasingly aware of the relation between food and mood and food and mind. And really that's the beauty of Ayurvedic, is the energetics of food, and how it does impact, just how we view the world and how we feel, and our overall mental and emotional state as well. So, I know your third pillar of health is sleep, and that is something that, certainly in probably most medical traditions is viewed as extremely important. Do you want to comment in terms of Ayurveda and how Ayurveda views sleep, and some of the Ayurvedic, I know insomnia is something that it's pretty rampant. Even if it's not full-fledged insomnia, people frequently have issues, sleep problems, and that does affect their mood, their energy levels, their ability to focus, their level of happiness. What can people do from an Ayurvedic perspective that's going to give them regular, good quality sleep?
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful question. And the first thing I do recommend is Transcendental Meditation. Obviously, that has had the most impact, more quickly. So whether people have trouble getting to sleep or staying asleep, that has had the most dramatic effect. But in addition to that, because occasionally I have people that do TM regularly and they still can't sleep, and it's just that they're sort of spinning out of control with stress and their job and the worries of their job, and they're trying to be very conscientious to keep their job, to do a good job for their boss, or maybe they are a CEO and they're just having stress trying to keep up running a business. But either way, a few wonderful things is this abhyanga, this oil massage. And while it's typically done in the morning also to improve digestion, you can do it in the evening if you don't have time. And that can be very settling to the vata dosha. So if people come home from work and they've had a nice meal and they've digested it, if they wanted to do a full body, sort of like a full body oil massage, and then take a nice Epsom salt bath, that would be really good. And I always tell people, leave the oil on. If you've worked so hard to get it on the body, leave it on. If you can, 20 or 30 minutes, have an old robe.
I read that. I liked what you wrote in the book in terms of, do your house cleaning in your old robe with your abhyanga oil.
Exactly.
So if you can, it's nice to let it permeate a bit.
Right. And literally, if you on the days that, especially for women, if they're going to wash their hair, then do it. You can leave the oil on, put a little turban on, and even the men can do this. When you put oil on the body, and especially the head and the feet, because they say that, there's more of the pressure points in the head and the feet than anywhere in the body. I mean, you just start to settle down. It's just incredibly relaxing. And so, yes, if you leave it on there, it's just going to penetrate. So I will even put a turban on and leave it overnight, and then I'll just wash my hair the next day. You have to put like a towel over the pillow. And believe me, I've gotten oil everywhere, and it's a nightmare to get out. So be careful what you rub up. I've rubbed up against the couch, and it's, you're going to be like, wow, this is a messy affair. I need to renovate my whole house now, of course. Sure. But, it's okay. I mean, it will come out, you just have to be very careful. So, I really do recommend that.
So it sounds like the Abhyanga, because many sleep problems are, the root cause is anxiety and stress.
Sure.
And the Abhyanga is fabulous for settling the nervous system, the Vata dosha, and just allowing people to actually relax so that they're able to sleep better. So yeah, I mean, that's just a wonderful recommendation. With regular use, it really has a profound impact after transcendental meditation, of course.
Right, absolutely. And then there's warm milk, believe it or not. That is, because milk is, if you're not a vegan, if you're like, at least if you can drink a little bit of good quality milk. I think dairy has gotten a bad rap because of the quality of the dairy that people are eating and drinking. But when you have organic milk boiled and you add some spices to it, that is very calming to the nervous system. And so I think, or the almond milk is also very good. So that's another thing. And so, there's Vata tea and Pitta tea and those calming teas that you could have at night. You can even put the oil just on the feet. Suppose you're exhausted, you don't have time to do the whole massage. I told a woman that a few days ago, and she's like, oh my gosh, I slept through the night. I don't know if it's going to work for everybody that quickly all the time, but she put, old socks on, put the oil on her feet, a light little massage, put the old socks on, and then she slept really well. Mapi also has some beautiful, like blissful sleep and deep rest. And there's actually some herbal preparations in very severe cases that I recommend that people take on a regular basis, like worry-free tablets or stress-free emotions. We were talking about, people have fear, they have anxiety, they have anger. And while the transcendental meditation helps with a lot of that, even for me over the years, I've had to, in very stressful times, I've had to take some of these herbal preparations just for myself to maintain balance, because sometimes it just seemed harder than others to maintain some of my emotions. And those are just like amazing to just be taking those under. I've had people completely like transform with their emotions. And so it's like a multimodality approach, and you have to try different things, because one thing's going to work great for one person, another thing's going to work great for somebody else. So I always tell people that it's a journey, not a destination. We're all kind of growing and evolving, and we just have to keep trying different things in Ayurveda to see what really works for us.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I love what you said. I mean, I do think that, especially with sleep problems, it definitely is a multifaceted approach. And it does take time and experimentation as to, what is really going to be effective in terms of resetting the nervous system is usually at the root, and just how people are going to respond to the different modalities that Ayurveda offers. Well, we are at the top of the hour. I want to be respectful of your time, Laurina, and I know that we actually only got to 3 of the pillars of health, but I'm just to encourage our viewers and listeners to pick up a copy of your book. I'm just going to quickly recite the other pillars of health, which would be, the 4th pillar is movement, yoga, and exercise. And the 5th pillar, I know you also have, I believe, people's homes, the vastu, the impact of the environment. And then, of course, you talk about You specifically, this has to be definitely the importance of really being aware of GMOs and eating organically. And that must be a passion project for you, there's no doubt. But I do think that that's often overlooked in Ayurveda in terms of with Ayurvedic practitioners, but I do think that is very, very important. And just the awareness that, there's toxins, our environment is very much compromised. So the more that we can do to support organics and say no to GMOs, it's super important. And then you also offer a chapter on the Ayurvedic detox, and that's not just the going to Panchakarma, which is usually done at a health center or a Maharishi health center or clinic, but really there are ways that you can do a gentle detox at home as well. So I really appreciated that. Your book also includes a number of recipes, and like you said, they're not intended to be gourmet. These are quick, easy, healthy recipes. So awesome. And you also have some common recommendation for some common health issues, things that we see over and over. So is there anything else that you want to leave viewers and listeners with about your book, about the work you're doing, and also where people can find you?
Yeah, so my website is www.yourayurvedaconsultant.com. And I offer wellness consultations. I'm throwing up a couple of a masterclass on cooking. And so I have a lot of YouTube videos that are for free. If you just go to YouTube, you can subscribe, you can watch them all. And just that really, if you get the book and it's something that you want to delve into, if you are new, it could seem overwhelming. There's a lot to tackle, but just literally go pillar by pillar and take a few months for each pillar if you need to. I always say slow and steady wins the race. So you don't want to feel like you could be like, oh my gosh, and I have to do this and I have to do that. And you would be overwhelmed. Just take one or two pointers from the book and implement that. And once that's established, then add a few more and add a few more, where it's just joyful, where you're not having to feel like it's a job. It's not easy today to take care of your health. As you say, our environment is so compromised compared to when our parents and our grandparents were growing up, that we do have to be very vigilant. And so it's going to be worth your time. Back to the motto, pay now or pay later. You're going to, definitely save more time by taking care of your health. And Ayurveda is all about prevention. So preventing disease before it arises. So I wish all of you a wonderful journey. And thank you, Noreen, so much for having me. I do love to share all the principles of Ayurveda.
Thank you, Laurina. This was really awesome. And thank you for all the knowledge and wisdom that you've shared today.